Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Off the Cuff. My name is Fred,
I'm Brian.
and we are joined by my good friend Ron here. How are you doing, Ron?
Hello. I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. So, we had mentioned to Ron that we were going to be doing this myth or fact, and he liked what we were doing so far, and he saw some of the topics, and he was like, "Man, I'd like to get in on that." So, here we are. So, without further ado, we're trying to make this one a little shorter, a little more precise, so we'll just jump right into it. So, my wife came to me because she's constantly been getting bombarded by questions from friends and family. Are cops allowed to do this? Do they really do that? And a lot of this stuff is nonsense from TV, but we'll dive right into the first one. The question that she gets a lot is, do cops have to ID themselves? And what that is more, she's talking more along the lines of, like you see in the movies, if there's an undercover narcotics detective and the person asks them 3 times, are you a cop? You have to ID themselves. Ron, I'll let you just hit this one right out the gate. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we do have to ID ourselves. There's no reason for us not to.
So, yeah.
As far as the narcotics thing goes, if you're undercover, no, you're John Smith. You're John Smith until you're done with whatever you're doing there. But
Exactly.
in uniform, yeah, why not?
Exactly. So in uniform, there are some instances where it's actually beneficial for us to make sure that we clearly ID ourselves. There are things like resisting arrest or obstruction charges where you can't be charged unless it's plainly obvious that the person you're obstructing or resisting is a law enforcement officer. So in situations like that where you're uniform patrol, or say even if you're a detective that's a little more plain clothes but you've got a badge or something, yeah, you would have to be very clear about identifying yourself. But as far as like the stuff you see on TV where they're doing an undercover drug buy and they're like, are you sure you're not a cop? Yeah, they don't have to ID themselves like that. We would never have narcotics detectives that survive. They would die every time if they were required to ID themselves. So this one's actually, thinking about it from the narcotics perspective, I said, oh, this is a myth, but it really depends on the circumstances. Like some of these are going to be, the application. Sometimes it's a myth, sometimes it's a fact. So, moving on to our next one. So she gets asked a lot. We live in an area where there's a lot of bridges over waterways, like large bridges, and people seem to always run up on traffic stops or drive by traffic stops that are at the top of the bridge. They're shutting down lanes of traffic. So we get asked a lot, like, is it necessary? Is there a reason why the cops do that? Are they like required to do it on the bridge? Why do they always do that and block traffic? The short and sweet of it is, because that's how the traffic stop happened. Obviously in most circumstances it's smartest and it's best to wait to turn the lights on and pull someone over until you're in a safe area where you're not going to get hit by traffic. But we try to be in control of the situation as best we can, but we can't always, dictate 100% how things go. Is that a problem you've run into, Brian or Ron? Is that a problem you've run into before where someone just pulls you over in a crappy situation and you're kind of just stuck doing the stop where it lands?
Well, not over a bridge. I've never had that happen to me, and I've never been pulled over a bridge either. So, I mean, when you told me that, and that was just news to me, but that's just my experience.
Yeah, so for the most part, where it happens, we're in control of that. When I go to activate my lights on a stop, it's especially on the interstate where we have on ramps and exit ramps. I try to wait to turn on my lights to do that stop until I know I'm in a better position for backup to get to me if I need to. Tops of the bridges usually aren't that. As far as where a person stops, I mean, you're supposed to go over to the right, but we've had those experiences where you activate those lights and all of a sudden they're stopped in a turn lane or right in the middle of the road, and then they just slam on the brakes. So where the cops are getting blamed on where someone stopped, a lot of the time it's the person we're trying to pull over that freaks out and just stops, all kind of cockeyed.
Yeah. Or just doesn't stop and keeps going. I was like, oh, you were trying to pull me over?
Yeah.
The lights and sirens for
as
3
you're sitting
miles.
there with their sirens blaring behind them. You're like, really?
In their defense, they can't see over the steering wheel a lot of times.
True.
So I guess to answer the question as best we can, I mean, if you're thinking that there's something that requires we stop them at a certain location or anything like that, that's an absolute myth. The only requirement is just our safety and trying to find the best place to pull people over. But like Ron and I said, there's people just are going to do what they're going to do sometimes, and we just have to adjust and get our bearings and handle it as best we can. So our next question was, are cops allowed to drive marked vehicles off duty? And that's a mixed answer, because it really depends on agency and your location, your state, your city. Most agencies, the agencies I've worked for, you are allowed to drive them off duty, but there's usually little caveats in there in the policy. You have to you have to wear professional attire in case you have to step out and act as a police officer. Like, you can't be wearing flip-flops and basketball shorts and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
so that is, it is true. They are allowed to drive off duty. I mean, I know it angers and upsets some people, but sometimes it's just one of the perks that comes with it. I don't know about you, Ron, how often you drive your marked car off duty, but man, when I started, I was like, man, this is cool. I get to drive a cop car. I would take it to wherever, within policy and stuff. I took it everywhere. And you find out very quickly, you see a traffic crash on your day off and you got to stop and jump out and help with a traffic crash, or you see something stupid going on. You're like, it ain't even worth it anymore. Like, probably about 2 or 3 times that happened, you're like, bump that. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I don't even like having it in my driveway some of the times. Every now and then you get those random people that show up like, oh, you're a cop and I don't live in the county, but they're knocking on my door. You're going, hey, this is going on? And you're just standing there with your basketball shorts and a t-shirt on going, I'm at home.
Why are you knocking on my door?
And I think right now, given today's the way things are today, I don't find a lot of us really wanting to drive our billboard around town for anything. I think our policy is more, we can go to the gym with it, and that helps with going to the gym before and after work. Other than that, I don't know anybody that's really wanting to drive a marked car around.
It's like I said before, it's usually the new guys, but not that.
Well, I've never driven my marked car off duty. I don't want anyone to try and stop me and ask for directions on my day off, or come on a crash that I have to work.
Yeah. Or at bare minimum, you got to stop out and hang out there until one of the zone units freezes.
Yeah, exactly.
End up 45 minutes of your time sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
So the next topic that we had, we get asked this all the time. I'm sure, Ron, and I know you got an opinion on this one, because this is the one that really made you go, man, I'd really like to get in on that. Law enforcement quotas, ticket quotas, arrest quotas, things of that nature. Since this is the one that got you all excited, man, I'll let you just jump right off with quotas. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, quotas are, I'm just going to call most of it a myth. None of us are really required to, at least not with our agency, are we required to write so many citations. That all stemmed from the whole, do we get a kickback for every ticket we write? No, that's how we fund ourselves. And the answer is no, we don't.
Not a penny.
Most of the time they don't. No.
Yeah.
There are some city PDs that do. And I think Florida, they came out with like the Waldo Act. I don't know a lot about it. I just know Waldo is a city in Florida, and whatever they were doing with quotas stemmed legislation in Florida saying quotas are illegal. Now, going back to that, I will like to elaborate on the more, we are asked to contact people all day. It's not a quota that says if we have somebody, the old school version was 4 contacts a shift, not an unreasonable expectation, and make sure that we're out talking to the public, interacting with people, doing our job, and not just sitting somewhere twiddling our thumbs.
Yeah, agencies will typically ask you to show proactivity, and the few times that they do accidentally kind of lean, and not our agency, but they do lean towards trying to push you for this or that or the other. It's a thin line that they really, really try to avoid, because agencies are getting sued across the country. New York is in the middle of a lawsuit right now. The NYPD is, the cops have been getting crushed because of, they've been punished. Vindictive nature of things. Oh, you're not really looking out for our guys. You're not looking out for the agency. And they've been getting sued. There's ones in Minnesota. There's LAPD is suing, and these are the police officers suing these agencies because quotas. I mean, really, quotas. What it boils down to is quotas do breed a nature within law enforcement where you're just going out there and it spits in the face of discretion. It takes away your ability to do what you deem to be the right thing, and make good decisions or good decisions for the public, because you've got to meet those quotas and stuff. And it's illegal. States, I've always been told that it was federally illegal. And I researched the crud out of this, and I can't find anything that says it's federally illegal. But pretty much every state that I looked up has some law on the books saying that quotas are illegal. And does it happen? Possibly. But as soon as there's a whistleblower, these places are getting sued, and they're losing a lot. So agencies do not go around asking people. Like I said, they want productivity. Like you said, 4 contacts a shift. If I pull over 10 people and I'm writing 10 warnings and I don't give anybody tickets, ain't nothing they can do about it, because what are you going to do? It's productivity. You're doing things. You're educating the public. Asking anything different is going to be
that right there. Yeah, that right there, educating the public. That's all they really want us to do with these things. They're not asking anybody to write tickets. I'm not a huge ticket writer. For the most part, it's quality over quantity, and that's what was beaten to my head as I came up through law enforcement here in 17 years now. It's quality over quantity. I could go and hand out 30 tickets a shift, 30 traffic stops a shift, but what am I really accomplishing if I'm not focusing and looking at certain specific areas or things that need to be educated on?
Sure, we have high crime areas, we have high traffic crash areas, and we try to sit in those areas so people, at bare minimum, like we discussed on one of our episodes recently, at bare minimum, you're deterring bad driving, you're deterring crime, things of that nature. So, it doesn't benefit me in any way, shape, or form to write you a ticket, other than maybe something you did was so egregious that you need a citation. You have to pay the penalty for it and learn from your mistakes, but there's zero benefit for me. There are some local jurisdictions that, and it tells you on the citation, if you are within these city limits, that you will, there's like a $2 extra fee that goes towards whatever. But I don't even think it's the police department. The police department doesn't see any of that money. So
no, like Georgia's got the super speeder. They have added things on there for certain things.
Well, and and a lot of jurisdictions too, they have like enhancement crimes and stuff enhancement citations for when you're doing really egregious things. But yeah, no, quotas, do they happen? I'm sure, just like anything, people do dumb stuff, but in general, they're illegal. And if you're caught doing it, you can lose your accreditation as an agency, which loses you a lot of funding. And you know what? The amount of money that you would make from writing tickets and stuff ain't going to compensate for the money you'd lose from the city, county, and state, or even federal for losing your accreditation. There's just too much to lose. So no. So myth. Quotas are myths, though they do, I'm sure, happen, but no, they are illegal. So our next one, I'm going to run this one to Brian, because I know we talked about it a bunch and we researched it a little bit. Not because we didn't know the answer, but because someone had sent something to me and we wanted to try and debunk it. So the next one is, we get asked a lot about people, about cops parking off on the side of the road, especially at night with their lights off and running radar, and are they speed traps and so on. So are cops allowed to run traffic enforcement with their lights off at night?
Short answer, yes. We're allowed to run traffic. I have buddies that sit in medians running traffic one way, running radar one way, and running radar another. We do it in law enforcement all the time, as far as sitting and hiding. And as long as you're obeying the traffic control devices, you won't have anything to worry about us coming to stop you. But yeah, we can completely black out and run radar if we want to or need to.
And again, depending on the area. Obviously,
Yeah.
certain cities, towns, and states and stuff, they have little caveats in their statutes or their codes that may dictate certain things. But in general, most places, especially where we work, you absolutely you can. The argument that we hear frequently is that it's entrapment. And entrapment is absolutely 100% that is a fictional answer. Anybody that says that it's entrapment doesn't understand entrapment as a whole. Entrapment is essentially law enforcement doing something to entice you to commit that crime, and you weren't already predisposed to doing that crime. So, if like
Yeah, that's exactly it.
and the example I give people is like, let's say I'm working in the traffic unit and my job is to nothing but traffic enforcement, and I'm driving, say, an unmarked Camaro, and I pull up next to somebody and I'm revving and revving and revving my engine, typical signs and symptoms that you want to do, street racing. And the guy takes off on me and we race, and then I pull him over. That can and that cannot fall under entrapment. If it's
That's
just
a sore loser.
So we're losing. Cops and their lights always winning races, right? So that can and can't fall into entrapment depending. So if it was, everyday average person and they're not really predisposed to street racing, you could very easily prove that you weren't predisposed to do that, and the cop doing that kind of caught you off guard. You committed that traffic crime or infraction based off of what his actions were or her actions. Now, it's very clear, you read through the statutes and the case laws and stuff. If you get pulled over, you have to prove both points of the entrapment. So you have to prove that A, the cop's action caused you to do it, and B, you were not predisposed to do it. So if you can prove that you are predisposed to doing something like street racing, like you've been arrested for it a bunch of times and you're constantly getting tickets for it and stuff like that, you could very well lose your entrapment argument. And even though the cop caused it, you are predisposed to doing things like that. So it's a tricky situation. So in general, it's not entrapment. If you're going to try to argue that point, entrapment's the worst excuse to use. So before we move on to the next one, Ron, anything else to add to that, or?
No, the entrapment thing, like you said, a lot of the policy and procedure is going to be jurisdictional. Just recently visited Nevada this year, and when they pull a car over, they can't sit with their lights on the side of the road. I'm looking at that as right, that was my thing. As something to look up for a little bit later. They shut their lights off, which is super dangerous in my opinion. But as far as sitting with our headlights off just to run radar, if you're going to speed, you're going to speed. You don't call it entrapment just because you don't want to get caught speeding.
Well, and the argument that I heard was, oh, well, you have to be visible from X amount of feet. Most agencies drive bright white cars, at least around here. Most of them drive bright white cars that even in the moonlight, they light up like a Christmas tree, even with no lights on, no
with reflective
badging all over it. Like if you can't see that.
Yes.
I mean, even cars with the black paint scheme, their graphics light up as soon as you.
Yep.
Even the ghost scheme lights up at night.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, I mean, just say you're not happy that you got caught speeding and you did something dumb. It is what it is. Like we've all been there. So
the reason I pulled it over is because you beat me.
That's not true. That never happens. No. So, on to the next one then. Miranda Rights. I mean, I'm sure both of you have probably heard this 1,000,001 times with, you didn't read me my rights when you arrested me or you handcuffed me. You didn't read me my rights. I'm going to beat this. And so the question is, do you have to be read your Miranda rights immediately or at all upon being arrested? Anyone?
I'll jump in on this one because I love explaining this to people. Your Miranda warning, it stems from asking questions that the answers are going to be incriminating. If I'm there on a domestic violence situation and I can see the evidence of the crime has been committed, and the simple fact of the matter is, yeah, we got into a physical argument. This person hit me. Yeah, I hit her. I don't need you to read your Miranda. We're already at the point of arrest. And as long as I'm not going to ask you any further questions about the thing you're getting arrested for, I don't have to read you Miranda at this time. If you can keep talking to me all you want. It's only in a setting where I am going to specifically ask you questions about a crime that I believe you've committed, and the answers that you're going to give me are going to prove that I'm correct in that. I have to give you an out. I've got to give you the ability to get an attorney and to make sure that you understand what you're doing.
They are designed to protect you from self-incrimination and not being a witness against yourself. So there are two things that are required for Miranda, and this view that I have to read you Miranda as soon as the cuffs are going on, that comes from TV. That's too much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Cops was a great TV show, but it was a nightmare as far as officer safety violations and all kinds of other stupid stuff. It was great to watch, entertaining, but it's
like CSI with the fingerprints.
So it stems around two things: interrogation and detention. Like, you have to not be free to go, you have to be in custody, and you have to be actually interrogated about the crime and something that would elicit a response that you would self-incriminate. So if both of those things are not present, and people say, "Oh, you're in custody." No, if a reasonable person would believe that they have the right, and not that person in that particular situation, but a reasonable person watching from the outside would feel they have a right to turn around and leave, then you're not detained. And if we're not going to stop you, you're not detained. So you have to have both of those things present in order to require Miranda. If I handcuff you and throw you in the back of the car and you're like, "Hey, I'm so sorry, I'm an idiot. I beat her up, because she didn't make me a sandwich." Okay, well, guess what? That's what's called a spontaneous utterance, and it does not require Miranda. And on the flip side, personal identifying information like your name, your date of birth, things that we need to ID you for prosecution for this crime do not fall under Miranda. You don't have the right to lawyer up to not give me your name, especially when you're being arrested. So,
and that is not required for civil. Do you know how fast you were going?
I know my rights, and what I say before, the people that scream "I know my rights" usually know them the least. So, no, that is an absolute myth. You do not. We can go for the whole time, from the time I show up to the time you go to jail and the handcuffs are taken off and you're booked into the jail. I don't have to read you Miranda at all, depending on the circumstances. And if I don't ask you any questions, and I'm not, so get that out of your head right now. So no, it is not required. Last but not least, just to we got our last topic, and just a little more lighthearted. And we hear this.
Actually, I want to ask you this question, Fred. Do you like donuts? The ultimate question for any cop is, do you like donuts? See?
Listen, anybody, cop or not, anybody that says they don't like donuts is lying to you. Like, everybody likes donuts.
Who doesn't like sugar power rings?
Right. I mean, do I like donuts personally? Yes, I do. I mean, I know it probably shows. I love me some donuts, but I've kind of made it a personal goal, and I've only failed at that goal one time, to not ever eat donuts in uniform, at least visible to the public, because I'm not for perpetuating stereotypes, man. You got a fat guy in uniform eating a donut. That's just a terrible look, man.
You're gonna end up a meme on Facebook or something.
Right. Exactly. I do enough stuff to end up a meme on Facebook. I don't need to add to it. So
you can't say no to a donut when Duncan's hooking you up saying thank you. You deliver it to the office.
Yeah. And we appreciate when that stuff happens. We have places like Dunkin' Donuts and stuff. They bring them into the roll call rooms to say thank you and everything, and we appreciate that stuff. So,
Nothing defeats a diet.
Yeah, I'm not turning down a donut, especially when it's a thank you from the public. Absolutely not. So, and I know, Brian, you said you're not huge on donuts, but we've had some our local bakery that everybody drools over. That's a little. I guess it's a mom and pop shop. I don't know, but they've.
Can we say the name, because they are amazing?
No,
we try to avoid that.
Yeah.
So they are amazing, but you know what?
They are amazing.
If you're watching and either of us, just call us up and ask us what it is. We have no problem sharing their names and stuff, but we try to keep the locale out of it a little bit, the location. So, yeah, but I know you've partook in those before, but
oh yeah,
but you're not huge on donuts in general, but yeah, I mean, you'll eat them.
No, there's only one place, and there's none Around us, it's Krispy Kreme.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah,
big name chain
those are
that's
the best
everywhere. So, so yeah, I mean, those are our topics so far for today, and we're looking to try and do this a little bit more frequently. We love these things, especially, I mean, the donuts one, it gets a little old, obviously, because we get asked that 900 times. You walk into a 7-Eleven, you're like, oh, must be a run on the donuts. Oh, I haven't heard that one a million times.
Oh,
Yeah,
donuts, and it wasn't me. I didn't
yeah, it
do
wasn't me. That was another thing. Oh, it wasn't me.
Ugh.
It was her or him.
It's like, listen, I get that you've been holding that in your back pocket for like the last 20 years. You've been dying to use that. That's probably the 10th time we've heard it today. So, whatever, man. Give them the fake laugh and move on. So,
Yeah.
but we're looking to do these things a little more frequently. If you have any other suggestions or ideas, or definitely any other facts or myths you want us to go over, I'm sure there's a laundry list of them. But we're definitely gonna continue trying at this, and obviously like and subscribe our channel, and keep commenting and reaching out to us, and we appreciate all the support, man. And notification bell.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
And if you want to see Ron back on the channel, whether a normal episode or another one of these, just let us know as well.
All right.
Thanks.
I'm glad he'll
Great time, guys.
I appreciate you being here, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
All right, guys, that'll be the end of it, and we'll catch you on the next one.